Hello, everyone. We are live for a Thursday afternoon special Boss on a Budget Live here on the YouTube channel and also on Facebook. So, are you interested in learning how to raise the first $100,000 for your nonprofit? A lot of times, once you get over that hump, then you can realize, okay, I can do this, or okay, I'm getting my momentum. Now we can raise more money because we have some breathing room. But it's so hard to figure out how to go literally from $0 in the bank to $100,000. Now, I've done some lives talking about that, strategies to use that, but I am excited today to share a special guest who's going to give you a model that he has used over and over and over again to raise that much and even more. And the exciting thing about this, y'all, is that you can do it. It's easy. I wouldn't say it's easy, it's simple, but you have to do the work. But I'm not going to be the one to explain that. He's going to come up in just a few seconds. But before we do that, I would love it if you all could just introduce yourselves, tell us who you are, where you're from, what your nonprofit is all about, because you literally have no idea who else is on the live with you. And you don't know how someone could be a blessing to you or your nonprofit. So make sure you guys introduce yourselves in the chat and say hello. Don't be rude, okay? So I am going to talk a little bit about Jason first before I bring him on the screen. Hey, Shelly. Jason is actually a key figure in the Christian nonprofit sector. So he has a wealth of experience that spans literally over 20 years. So after he graduated from the Moody Bible Institute, he spent a decade in ministry within the Chicago area. And it was there he identified the need for improved fundraising processes in the ministries he was working with there. So in 2006, in response to that, he co-founded Fund Easy with a desire to streamline fundraising events for nonprofits. In 2016, Jason responded to his own personal call and he actually established Reaching the Heart of Zambia, a ministry aimed at educating street children and rescuing them from the slums in Zambia, Africa. Most recently, Jason co founded Fundraising Masterminds, which exists to equip nonprofit leaders with time tested, proven development strategies through training and coaching. And if you guys haven't already, you need to make sure you check out the Fundraising Masterminds YouTube channel. They have so much content there about fundraising. So if you have not checked it out, please do that. I am happy to welcome Jason today, and I feel like I mispronounced Zambia, but you'll correct me. I didn't.
Yeah. Hey, it's good to see you, Tiffany. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, Jason, for coming. Welcome to the show. So we have a lot to get into today. We're going to go through a lot. But first of all, just tell me a little bit more about your background, your experience in fundraising, especially for small nonprofits. Like, what brings you here to this space?
Yeah. Well, as you were just reading through my bio, it kind of like my life was flashing before my eyes. I was like remembering all the places I came from. And at one point in time, I was just a normal guy, with a desire to work in ministry full time. Didn't really feel called to be a pastor, but I felt called to use my technical abilities and things like that to help with ministries, nonprofits, churches, whatever. And around the time that I was in college, I started volunteering at a local radio ministry in the Chicago area. And basically, they did these fundraiser events that I'd never been exposed to before. They did these, I guess we would call them a gala, but we call them perfect vision dinners now. But they were doing vision dinners, and I was the guy behind the scenes, doing sound and running around, just doing whatever I could to keep the lights on. But after doing a couple of those and seeing them. And then I started working at another organization a few years later, another counseling ministry, and they also did a series of vision dinners. They actually did one every year. Well, it turned out that the guy who worked with both of those organizations was Jim Dempsey, who's the guy I'm now working with, to co-found Fundraising Masterminds. And 20 years later, so I never would have guessed that that's where I would be. But what was interesting is these organizations they would be doing these dinners, and they'd pull in like two or three or $400,000 in a night, and I was just blown away by it. But honestly, all the organizations I kind of ended up working with were all loosely related to uh, Jim in some way. So Jim was consulting them all behind the scenes. I just didn't realize it. And they were all raising, a good amount of money. And I just thought this was normal. And so it wasn't until later on, when we started working more with nonprofits directly, that I realized, wow, people aren't doing the same thing. Like what we were doing isn't normal. I was actually the non-normal, and what the normal is actually, more fundraising, traditional fundraising, and selling tickets and doing raffles and car washes and all that kind of stuff. And people typically only raise like, 10, $15,000, maybe 30 if you're really lucky. But so I really started to see that more hands-on when we started the software company. You mentioned co-founding Fundeasy in 2006, and that was really it was really, I created it for myself, to be perfectly honest, because the organization I was working with, they were doing these vision dinners every year, and there was no Eventbrite or anything like that existed, and the director wanted to do online registration. And at the time, the person doing the management of the event was using Excel documents and Post-it notes and stuff. And so I kind of started with just a simple online registration because I have a computer background. And so I started tinkering with things. And eventually, as Jim was in there training and teaching us, how to do these vision dinners, I just built the software, the back end management. I built it over a series of like 4 or 5 years. I kind of built it around his exact model because that's what we were using. And I thought, I wasn't thinking other people would use it, but we was just making it for us. But it turned out that there were thousands of other nonprofits that do similar types of events. And so we ended up, getting a contract with Campus Crusade for Christ because when Jim ended up seeing our program, he said, wow, that's really cool. We need to use that for all our dinners. And Campus Crusade does like 300 dinners a year. And so I was a little bit dumbfounded, like, you guys are like a multi-million-dollar organization, and I think you have your own software department. Like, why don't you have something like this? But they didn't. And so that's kind of what ended up kicking off, the software side of things. And then as we started promoting it to other ministries, it just turned out that there were a lot of similar types of events that needed similar things. But the software really, Fundeasy really geared towards, like, I guess at the beginning it was more just any kind of event. And so it started off as just fundraising for any event. And that's where I started to really see, the change. And like we'd bring on, I think over the 20 years, we've worked with about 4,000 ministries across the country. And so we've seen, tens of thousands of events a year where they're just anything under the sun, car washes, ticketed events, bowl-a-thons. I mean, it's literally anything. If you go into Google and type like fundraising ideas, you get like 30,000 ideas. Those are like all the ideas that I started to see in Fundeasy. And what was interesting was after about 10 or 15 years, I started looking through the results of these. And then I started looking back at, the vision dinners that we used to do and stuff. And I was like, there is something really off with the way people do fundraising. And so I ended up talking to Jim because I was really focused on the fundraising. Jim was more focused on like training and working with people. So we ended up connecting around 2018, a couple of years before COVID, and we started talking about this, and I started sharing like, why are ministries, they're just not seeing the results. And so he started, sharing with me about more kind of pulling back the curtain of the mindset behind why they do vision dinners and why vision dinners are important, and just even how the vision dinner fits into like an overarching system of development. So he really started talking about the differences even between like fundraising and development, or what he refers to as like friend-raising. Um, Sometimes people don't know the term development. It sounds like software or something.
Right.
But yeah, the layman term would be like fundraising versus friend-raising. And I really like, even though I'd been doing fundraising, software and helping ministries for a long time, we never really like did a deep dive with him. So it was really over 2018 to 2020 where we started having some more conversations, and Jim really won me over, where I drank the Kool-Aid, so to speak, and understood, finally started to understand like, whoa, most people just do not see it this way. That the goal of a nonprofit isn't to fundraise, but it's to get partners for life. And the way we define life is labor, influence, finances, and expertise. So we want to have partners come on that are excited about the organization, that are willing to contribute their labor, their influence, their finances, and their expertise. So it's not just to give me money, but if we can get them to buy into the vision, if we can get them to kind of pull back and give them a vision for the future, they will invest significantly more than a typical fundraiser.
So
So
I just want to highlight a few things you said, if it's okay, Jason,
yeah,
because for you all listening, he dropped so many gems just in his introduction. And I know we're going to go deeper on some things, but a couple of things that I wanted to point out was, first of all, when you said, you were thinking that people raising $200,000, $300,000 was normal, and that it's not. So I think it's important to normalize for people when they get frustrated when they're very new, that they're not successful at fundraising, that somehow is something that's wrong with them. When really it's like the way people traditionally teach fundraising, it's off center, right? It's not in line with how people like to give or how people want to support good missions or good organizations. So, first of all, you're not abnormal if you're having trouble like fundraising or raising enough money for your mission. But what was so important about what you said, Jason, I'm so glad you said it, is that you're getting partners for life. That the goal is not money. And I teach that as well. Like, the end goal is not money. You want people who are going to support your mission, going to be your ambassadors, like invest in the work that you're doing, to be your biggest cheerleaders. That's the end goal, right? So if any of that resonates with y'all in the chat, please give us a holler. Let us know you're still here, because those jewels alone were so great. But I would love for you to talk a little bit more, Jason, about like what makes the Perfect Vision dinners different, or what makes them unique than your regular like bowl-a-thon or a regular fundraising gala.
Yeah, well, I just am sharing my screen right now. So if you wouldn't mind pulling up that little diagram. So I always like to start here because this diagram, it might look a little overwhelming, but the reason why I share this is because it really shows how the Perfect Vision Dinner fits into a framework, right? So we're not just doing a one and done event. We're not just, this isn't, the perfect vision dinner is just, it's not just something that you should try and then try something else next year. And it's really part of a framework. And this is really a result of probably about 40 years worth of testing and trying things, and really kind of coming to the conclusion that there's certain events that are really good at fundraising, and there's certain events that are really good at friend raising, building partners. And so this chart actually comes from Campus Crusade for Christ. This is the plumb line that Jim refers to, and we don't talk about this a lot on the podcast. I usually share this on like a Zoom call or something when I'm talking to people. But essentially, what this is the framework is essentially built on 3 pillars, which are at the bottom. So we have win, keep, and lift. And what we mean by that is, what we're ultimately trying to do is we're trying to win new partners to your organization. We're not trying to raise funds necessarily, although that will come, but we're ultimately trying to win people over to your movement. We're trying to, in a sense, you're trying to create a movement. It doesn't have to be a national movement, but you're trying to create buzz around your organization, and you're trying to be a part of something special. So you want people to be won over to that. The next thing, once they're won over and they're investing, the next thing is that you want to keep them through cultivating relationships. So this whole development model is built around relationships, which is the opposite. I don't know if antithesis is the opposite. I can't remember. It's the opposite of transactional fundraising. So like, if you just think about, like, I don't know, you're at Walmart, you're checking out, buying some groceries, and they ask you, would you like to donate $1 to the blah, blah, blah fund? And you're like, I don't know, maybe, sure. You just, what do they do? Oh, they help kids. Okay. And you have no idea what they do. You don't know their mission. You don't know their vision. You don't even know what their values are. You just know they help kids. And that's a transactional relationship. And the problem with that is that it's built on what we refer to as the myth of the multiples. So a lot of times the mindset goes something like, if I can get 100,000 people to give me $1, then I'll have $100,000. And so we call that the myth of the multiples, because it just doesn't work that way. You don't get 100,000 people giving you $1. And so what we are trying to do instead is we're trying to win people over to our organization. We're trying to start a relationship with them, and then we want to keep them in a relationship. And then after years and years of relationship building, cultivating that relationship, then we will lift them to higher levels of giving. So what that ends up looking like is, let's see. No, I didn't draw a box around the top. So the very top bar where we have new name, new donor, all that stuff, this is basically the flow that we want to have a relationship with people. So when we're winning people to our cause, we get their name, we introduce them to the ministry, and then when they start giving, then we divide them into one of these 4 categories on the right. Either become a core donor, a key donor, a major donor, or a mega donor. And we treat them differently based on where they're at. And so we have basically we have 3 programs now that focus on these 3 elements. But the main piece that we're talking about with the Perfect Vision Dinner is it's the best event for winning people to your cause. So really, ultimately, what we're trying to do, and I have some screens here just to show you just some pictures of what these events look like. And these are real events. Like, this was an event that we trained. It happened on the spring of 2024. They raised $171,000 at this event in California. It was they actually were concerned it wouldn't work for them because they were in a rural area. Because a lot of people think this will work in big cities, but it doesn't work in smaller communities, and it does. Um, but you can see, it's a black tie event. Men are dressed up in suits. Women are typically wearing gowns. It's nice. It's usually in a hotel or venue. We do plated meals. This is another school in Orlando, Florida. They raised $355,000 last spring. And you can, because I'm just showing you these pictures just so you kind of get an idea. This is another one in Franklin, Tennessee. They raised $210,000. You can see, like, this isn't like in your church basement. People aren't wearing, t-shirts and stuff. It's not a car wash, right? And so these are the types of venues that we're doing. This was our largest one that we did in the spring of 2023, called Garden Gate Ranch, and they raised $783,000 in one night. Can you believe that? It's crazy. So they didn't start off that way, though. So one of the things that I love about the Perfect Vision Dinner is that it grows. So you don't go from 0 to 700,000 in one fall swoop. It takes time. So what I love about it is that, you can start off the program. Our goal is usually to raise $100,000 for the first Vision Dinner. And then from there, we try to grow it to the next year. So it's a yearly cycle, right? So going back to the chart that I was showing you at the very beginning, where we're winning people over through the Perfect Vision Dinner mentorship program, that's going to give you 300 basically new partners in the organization. And then from there, we're going to teach you how to build relationships with them throughout the year. So we're going to do appeals and direct marketing, and you're going to meet with people. You're going to take people out for coffee. You're going to send them letters, and just there's a whole slew of things you can do to build relationships. But the idea is that the next year, when you go to do your Vision Dinner again, you're going to draw from those relationships that you built, and you're going to be able to build out a bigger dinner. Our goal for each Perfect Vision Dinner is to essentially fill the room with 50% new people every year. So if you kind of look at it as like a funnel, you've got people coming into the funnel that are new, and then we kind of get them into this workflow where we're developing relationships. But then the next year, we don't invite the same people. We leverage those new relationships to find more new people. And then we bring them into the flow, and then we do the same thing every year. So it grows, right? It's like a mushroom. So this organization that I was showing you, where they raised, 783,000, they actually started their very first Vision Dinner with us, with Jim, 7 years ago. They had 150 people in the room. They raised $83,000. It was actually lower than what we normally do, which is normally 100,000. And they took the relationships and they just did exactly what we said. We worked on building those relationships over time. The next year they raised 130,000. Then we had more people to draw from. And then the next year we raised 200 and something. I can't remember the exact number, but it grew and grew and grew to where we now have the 7th annual Vision Dinner, and they're at 783,000. So their big vision for the Garden Gate Ranch was that they wanted to build a $2.5 million recovery center for women and families who had been stuck in human trafficking. And they wanted to give them a safe place to recover and to build their life back and stuff like that. So it was a huge vision, and it was costly, to $2.3 million. And you can't just raise $2.3 million, in one fundraiser. So what our strategy with them was, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So we're going to do a series of Vision Dinners over 7 to 10 years, and we'll get there eventually. But
Mhm.
see, now they have, this particular dinner, they had about 1,000 people in the room. When
Mm.
they started, they only had like 150. So it
That
it's
that is
pretty,
amazing.
yeah.
That is amazing. So I went to actually ask a question because I know a lot of people when they see that number, they're like, oh, okay, of course, established nonprofits can get 1,000 people in the room. And of course, you can raise, almost $1 million on one event. But what about us? What about the small folks or the new folks who we don't know a lot of people, or people in our communities aren't giving, or we don't know any rich people? I'm pretty sure you've heard all those things. So I'm curious. I already know the answer to the question, but I want you to answer, Jason. Like, how realistic is it? Let's say for $100,000 goal, how realistic is it for a nonprofit to be able to reach that goal if they're new and if
Yeah.
they're small?
It's a good question. I get this question a lot, like on a daily basis, and this is why I'm so excited. I actually transitioned off of, so I was the CEO at Fundraising for like 15 years, and I actually found a CEO to replace me, and I liked the job, but I believed in this so much. I was like, I want to do this full time because this is way more fun than software. so so I found a CEO to take over, my first business, and then I wanted to start fundraising masterminds because I once the light bulb went off and I realized this is literally something that anyone can do. And it's so easy to raise 100,000. I know that might seem almost like laughable to some people, but I wanted to. I mean, the majority of people who join the Perfect Vision Dinner mentorship program raise at least 100,000. 100,000 is kind of like our baseline goal. So we kind of look at it as if we're not raising 100,000, something went wrong. But typically, and I'm going to share my screen again because I like visuals. I'm literally going to show you, and this is an unedited chart. I'm going to show you the results of the spring class. Okay, so I'm not hiding anything. This is just straight up. If I can figure out how to get
I've
this
seen this
to,
chart.
there
It
we
is
go.
amazing.
Okay, here we go.
Oh.
So I don't know. Can you guys see that? Maybe if I make this a
Let's see
little
if I make
bigger.
it bigger.
Um,
Yeah.
but these are the results of our class. So in the spring we did about 25 dinners across the country, and actually for this fall we're doing about 42. So we have 42 in our program right now. But you can see right here, the type of org it is, the date we did the dinner, where we did it at, and you can see, you know, how much money was brought in. So typically we're bringing in single gifts tonight. Those are like cash gifts at the dinner. We're also asking for monthly commitments, and we're asking for commitments over time. So in the 90-day and this year slot, that's typically people making commitments out of their assets. So we
Mhm.
have a very specific way of doing the program. This is like Jim's bread and butter. And so he has a 2 hour and 15-minute program that we have all mapped out and ready to go.
Mhm.
And you got to follow the formula. It's literally like a recipe. But
Mhm.
if we just scroll to the right here, you can see, I mean, Tiffany, you tell me if you see a goal under the goal column that's less than 100,000.
Mhm.
You see anything less than 100,000 on there?
I don't.
So you can see like previously raised, you can see some of the orgs were at like 10,000, 17,000, 10,000, 1,000. They were pretty much at zero, but I just gave them the benefit of the doubt. Um, and then you can see like how much we raised after the program. So it's a very before and after type thing there where you can see, the one, let's see, there's one here, the third or fifth one down, where they raised 10,000 before. That was actually a Christian school in Detroit, Michigan, that they were about to close their doors. Actually,
Mhm.
they paid for our program with like the last money that they had.
Mhm.
And they were like, if this doesn't work, we're closing our doors. And they raised $171,000. So they're still open.
Amazing.
So yeah, you can, these are people who, you know, there were a few in our program that were, you know, doing okay, you know,
Mhm.
like this 375 right here. They were a pregnancy center that was, they were averaging around 300,000 a year, but they really wanted to get to like 500,000 because they had a couple of new locations they wanted to open.
Mhm.
They had some big dreams, but they just couldn't figure out how to break through.
Mhm.
So we got them to 542. So even it works for larger organizations, but the majority of the people that are in our program are actually smaller.
Mhm.
They're the ones that are probably the majority of the people listening, where they're like, I don't know what I'm doing. I've tried a few fundraisers. The most I can raise is 5 to 10,000. You
Mhm.
know, I really have a dream and a vision, and but I don't know how to take it to the next level. So what do I do?
Mhm.
That's where, you know, the Perfect Vision Dinner program kind of takes it from there. So
Mhm. So the answer for y'all who are wondering, is it possible? Is it realistic? Yes, it absolutely is. But for someone who is starting really pretty much from scratch, because I saw a couple of people had only raised $1,000 at that point when
mhm.
we began to engage you all. What
Yeah.
factors should they consider? Like, how do they need to prepare themselves to get to that point?
Um, I mean, I used to think like when I first started working with Jim, I used to think like, um, you know, you have like people who do like baby fundraisers, and it's like, well, you want to work up to a vision dinner, you know?
Mhm.
So that's how I used to think, like, well,
Mhm.
you know, do like some Giving Tuesday campaigns, or do some online things, or do some car washes, and like kind of build up to the vision dinner.
Mhm.
And Jim, you know, when I started working with him, he literally just, I mean, you probably hear this on our podcast. He literally just says, no, the vision dinner is like the first thing I do with everyone.
Mhm.
And even if you're like brand new, he's like, vision dinner, number one thing that we do off the bat. And the reason for that is because it really, it really is like, I don't know. It's like the Kickstarter investor. It's like the Kickstarter to your organization.
Mhm.
It really does kind of gets the momentum moving.
Mhm.
And one of the reasons why it works so well is because we've done over 3,000 of them now over the last 40 years. So we've got it down perfected to a very systematic formula that works. That's the best way. So people ask me all the time, well, what if it works for everyone, but it doesn't work for me? And I'm like, if you follow the formula, it's like, that's like saying, well, I know I can look up a bread recipe, but what if I know the bread recipe works for everyone, but what if it doesn't work for me? And
Right.
it's like, well, if you follow the recipe, you'll get bread, you know, and that's kind of where we've got this down to. So we've got a 300-page workbook that gives you step by step from week 21. I don't know if you can see this, but week
Mhm.
21 all the way down to the day of your dinner. We start at the very beginning from like understanding the strategy, why the strategy is unique. Then we talk about the venue, what kind of venue you need to book,
Mhm.
how to budget for this. So we help you come up with a budget. I'll tell you just right off the bat, it does cost about $10,000 to
Mhm.
put on a vision dinner at the minimum. Between 10 and 15 is like average, but most of that money is towards the end.
Mhm.
So to get actually started, like the actual upfront expenses that you need is mostly like print and postage type things. So it's about $2,000 to $3,000 in like print materials and postage.
Mhm.
So it doesn't cost a lot, and you can a lot of that stuff. you can get funded through like a local business owner or something like that's.
Mhm.
I I had a Christian camp come to me last spring, and they said, "I've been listening to your podcast for a while. I'm totally sold on the vision dinner. I want to do it, but I have no money at all. What do I do?" I said, "You literally have no money." And he's like, "I have no money." So I was like, "Okay, well, here's what I want you to do. I want you to find, 5 people who own businesses or entrepreneurial, well-off individuals. Business owners are great because they understand investing. Um, but find, a couple people like that, take them out to dinner, tell them about the vision dinner, tell them like what you want to do and what you think you could do, and ask them if they would mind, would they give, five to $10,000 towards allowing you to have this event.
Mhm.
And if you tell them that your $5,000 gift will result in another $120,000 being brought in,
Mhm.
they will be like, that'll be the best $5,000 that I ever spent,
Mhm.
because it's like multiplies, right? So if the business owner, like a lot of like people who can give $5,000, they have that ability. They
Mhm.
understand that, or like they're giving it because they believe in the organization, so they want to see it succeed.
Mhm.
And you can spend all your time trying to get a bunch of $5,000 people, or you can use that 5,000 and you know use it to bring in exponentially more, and set you up for the future. So
Mhm.
ultimately, anyone can do it, and that's exactly what he did. So he went out, he found a guy. He's like, I'm not even going to pay for the course. I'm just going to let him sign up for me because he's going to pay for it with his business or something.
Mhm.
And so he signed up for the mentorship program, and he's in it right now. They're on track for, I think their goal was 150,000 for this fall. So we'll see if they hit their numbers. But he's like going from 0 to 150 basically, and got started through a business owner. So
That's amazing. I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of people, they'll put up barriers or they'll put up obstacles and say, "But how can we raise money or how can we invest when we literally have no money?" That's the point.
yeah.
And the recurring theme, if you all haven't noticed with what Jason is talking about, is relationships. It's about meeting people. It's about opening yourself up to the possibility, opening yourself up to hope. Because if you've already determined for yourself that, oh, I couldn't go to that business owner, they're going to tell me no, they're going to think I'm crazy, then you've already sold yourself short. So I hope if nothing else that you get from this is that it is possible. And that whatever fears or doubts that are rising up for you as you hear him talk and say, okay, well, yeah, that would work for those people, but not me. I really hope you hear that it is possible, yes, for you. And yes, you can do that. So I'm
Yeah.
really curious, Jason, like because you've worked with so many people, um, like how do people need to show up in order to make this work? I don't know if that question makes sense, but you obviously have to follow the formula. You obviously have to do the work, but what are the things that help contribute to success that make people more likely to hit their goals or go beyond their goals?
I mean, honestly, the people who just follow the formula usually hit their goals,
Mm,
because the formula works, and that's what's beautiful about it. Is like, going back to the bread analogy.
mhm,
After you've made bread like 2,000 times, you don't question the recipe anymore. You kind of memorize the recipe, and you can probably do it from your head. But
mhm,
it's literally, I know that might sound so simple, and it's not a simple recipe. I mean, there's 267 items that need to be done over
mhm,
a 21 period, and it is work. Like,
mhm,
we pretty much hit the ground running, and we have, this mentorship program. What's actually amazing about it is it's not a video course.
mhm,
It's actually a live program. So if you've ever wondered, like, I don't know if anyone listens to like Dave Ramsey's or anything, but
mhm,
he's like the guru for budgets and, you know, retiring and stuff like that. But like, if you've ever wondered, like, man, I wish I could just have like Dave Ramsey's like create a personal plan just for me, you
Mhm.
know, and you know, that's kind of what this program is you get access to Jim. Jim is he's the chief development officer at Crew. So his annual budget that for his organization is $750 million a year.
Mm.
So that's not a small organization.
Mm-mm.
And he's in charge of multiple, it's a worldwide organization, but he is the main development guy that's in charge of the strategy. And this is his plumb line. Like, this is what he keeps going back to. So they do several hundred vision dinners a year across the country, and it's their main bread and butter that brings uh, new people. Like, if you've ever wondered, like, how does an organization span like multiple generations and not like die? You know, it's
Mhm.
through vision dinners. That's how the baton. So what we've seen is a lot of organizations that don't do vision dinners like the way we do them, they kind of fizzle out. There'll be one generation that grabs it and runs with it, and then
Mhm.
they fail to pass it to the next generation. And so then you end up with like a bunch of old people running this thing, and they run out of steam and the whole thing collapses and dies.
Mhm.
So, but like an organization like Campus Crusade, it's been around since the 1950s. It's been like the founder is dead and it's still flourishing, you know, and still accomplishing its goal. And that's because the torch has been passed down from generation to generation, and it's done through vision dinners.
Mhm.
So the biggest thing that we've discovered is that people give to vision a lot more than they give to trinkets. So, or a lot more than they would, you know, give in a token gift. So it's an analogy I like to use is like, let's say if we were to rewind back to like 1997 when Apple was like going bankrupt, right? And they brought Steve Jobs back in, and he's there to save Apple. Well, he had this idea in his head for how he could change the music industry, but in order to get there, he had to get focused. He had to come up with a vision. He had to come up with a strategy of how much is it going to cost, how is it going to work, and he needed to create. He probably had a series of investor meetings where he got a small group of people together that well, I know, yeah, I know there was a bunch of people like Bill Gates invested in Apple, you know, back then. But he got a bunch of people together and he said, "Here's what Apple's at. Here's what Apple could do. I have this vision for how we could disrupt, you know, take over the music industry, and it's going to be awesome. It's going to revolutionize the world, change the world." And you know, and a bunch of investors buy into it, right? So that's the whole. It's the whole vision casting that gets investors interested, and that works in business. Like if you've watched Shark Tank or any of those things, like they're all there pitching their vision, right? And the sharks are, they only invest if they believe in the vision. So really what the perfect vision dinner is we are, it's a private event where we are it's invitation only. It's friends inviting friends, so we're not publicizing this event. It's not going out to your whole mailing list or anything like that. It's just we get your board together. We hand select about 30 to 60 people that we think would make good table hosts. We have a whole like qualification of what makes a good table host, and then we basically ask those people to go out to their networks and invite people that they think would be interested to hear an exciting opportunity for what God is doing in your organization. So essentially, we're part of the goal here with the perfect vision dinner is we got to get the right people to the event, and the way that we get the right people to the event is through relationships. So it's all built upon relationships. It's our board or your board talking to their friends and asking them if they would talk to their friends to get their friends to come and hear an exciting opportunity for the organization. So everyone who's at the dinner is a friend of a friend of a friend. There's no random person there that you don't know, right? And so in a sense, it's kind of a big family. But then when we put together the actual program itself, it's a 2 hour and 15-minute program. We are basically assuming that nobody knows that you even exist or what the problem is. So we always start with what the problem is, why do you exist, what are you trying to do about the problem, and then what's your dream vision for the next 5 years? Where do you want to go, and then how can we help you get there? So we structure the whole program around what we call the 3 accelerators. And this is all discussed in the program. I mean, we literally walk you through 21 weeks, step by step, all the way through how to do this from start to finish. So the whole thing is basically, you don't have to know anything going in, but at the end, you're going to have a perfect vision dinner done with results and hopefully a bunch of new partners. But the main thing that's unique about this is that we are asking people to partner with us to accomplish the vision. So we're getting them excited. We've had people, Tiffany, who are at the end of the vision dinner. Like I had one guy who is kind of a famous celebrity. He went to one of our dinners for a Christian school that we were raising money for. And he said, in my head, I thought I had identified already that I was going to give $5,000. That was his amount that he had selected. He said, by the time we got to the end and the program was over, it was like my wife and I looked at each other and we were like, we doubled our gift. So they gave 10,000, and they were like so excited to write that check. They were both ecstatic. Like he said, when they went home, they were energized, they were excited, they were hopeful. And so that's what this event does. So actually, I have a video that I sent you a link for, and I'll leave you with this, and then we can answer some questions. But this video really like sums up the feel of what the event is like. And so I just would love for you to play that. It's about a minute long.
Sure, let's play it really quickly. And
yeah, if you guys have any questions or anything, feel free to put that in the chat, and I would love to answer any questions.
All right, let's go for it.
Hopefully you feel like this is a family reunion, because ideally when you're part of FCA, you're part of a family, right? There's 3 things that I think influence our culture: music, movies, and sports. We're distinctively in the lane of sports, and we want to go to where coaches and athletes are, sharing that hope and then training them up to continue to share the hope with others.
FCA has been the biggest, most pivotal factor in my faith journey. I would not be the person I am today without it, and I know that I would not be where I am in life today without FCA.
Watching one person be that ripple of change that happens throughout it is the greatest thing to see as a coach. We got a chance to change the world through the next generation.
I am thankful beyond words for what God did and taught me through FCA, how to take his truth into reality, and through sports, and ingrain that in me to where it's changed me forever.
Doesn't that just like give you goosebumps just watching that?
Here we go. Okay. Yeah. So we're gonna go through a few questions. We have probably about like 8 more minutes to go. But I just love what you said about the celebrity doubling their gift and how they described how they felt when they gave. Because I encounter a lot of people who can't even get to the ask because they assume that they're bothering someone, or they assume that the person doesn't have it and they would be offending them by asking. And I try to stress to people that the joy of the act of giving is joyful for people. People want to give to something good. People want to hope for something better, and you're giving them that opportunity by asking them to invest in the work that you're doing. And if y'all heard that example, I hope that really resonated with you, because people love to give. People love
Yeah,
to know
they really do.
doing something.
They want to give to something that they know is going to actually make a difference. And
Exactly.
that's the difference between a car wash and a vision dinner.
Yeah.
You know, the vision dinner is, we are telling them exactly how much we need to raise. We're
Mhm.
breaking it down for them. We're showing them how their money will be used.
Mhm.
Similar to like an investment event, you know, like, you know, if Apple needed to raise $10 million, they're going to break it down for the investors. This is how we're going to use your money. This is what we're going to do with it. And if we do these things, we'll be able to do this. And it's similar, except for the nonprofit, it's all about impact. You know, so for a business, the motivation is to make money, but for the nonprofit, the motivation is for impact. So everything about the vision dinner is all focused around, how are we going to make the biggest impact? How are we going to change the world through this, you know, vision that you have? And so everything is geared towards that. And so when people are giving, they're giving with the understanding that my $10,000 is going to do this. You know, we're very specific. So they walk away with a very clear understanding of where their money is going. And then the next year, when we do the next one, we give an update. This is, last year we raised 150,000, and this is how we used your money. And they give a kind of a quick State of the Union, and then they launch into the next vision, you know, and they build upon that. And so when you do it year over year, you start to build confidence in people. They start to get excited. I mean, this is what builds like generational impact, you know, and keeps people for life.
Yeah, I love it. So there were just a couple of questions. There was someone asking about how it works with when an organization is a subsidiary under a parent nonprofit, and how to structure the starting of the mentorship and allowing them to join using this method. I think I got that question right, but MJ, please let me know. But have you done that before, and how does that work?
Like, does he mean like it's under a larger like organization, but they're like a sub chapter or something?
I think so.
I mean, typically we just work with sub chapters. Like, we work with a lot of organizations, like FCA, for example, is a national organization, but they have like hundreds of little sub chapters. Another one is, oh golly, Chesterton Academy Network is a network of Christian schools. So Young Life is another one. They have all these camps everywhere. So typically what we do is we're just going to the chapters directly, and we're just saying, you don't have to wait for the national organization to give you permission. Just do it. And then they'll probably ask you what you did when they see the results. And then they'll probably be like, oh, can we do that too? Because they'll want to do it too. So
Yeah.
that actually literally happened with an organization called CEF, Child Evangelism Fellowship. We had a handful of them come on. They did a dinner. They raised a bunch of money, and then that got the attention of more. And so, you know, now it's starting to pick up steam where they're all starting to want to jump on board. And but we usually start with the grassroots and kind of work up from there.
Yeah, there was a follow-up question. Do you recommend them partying together or completely separate dinners if they work closely together?
Oh, like they have they already do a dinner?
Yeah.
Is that what he means?
Yeah, and this may, needs to be a follow-up to understand a little bit better. But I think they're asking, like, if it's a national organization and it's a chapter, should they do a party together, or should the chapters do their own parties and the national organization do its own party?
We usually have the chapters do their own thing. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. And then one last question before we jump off. If you're scared to share sorry, that's just a comment. Let me see. At dinners, do you invite competitors I don't know, that might be a typo after that, but unless it's not part of the formula. So what are your thoughts about inviting, I guess what they're terming as competitors?
Competitors to the nonprofit.
I guess.
I mean, we really, again, this event isn't like a public event. So it's not like you're going to publish it in your newspaper. We don't even post it on social media. It's literally like a private event. So 95% of the attendance will come from the table hosts, which are the people that your board hand selected to fill a table. So it really is, I mean, if your competitor is like a friend of a friend that they think that is going to invest in the organization, then great, they'll be there. But if they're not interested because they're a competitor, they're probably not going to show up, because we only want people to come who would be interested in supporting the ministry or the organization. Right. So, so we do actually have a mentorship program coming up in October. We only teach them twice a year. The next one starts October 28th, and it's a 21-week program. We do weekly coaching calls live. We have video training, as well as like private calls. So we actually do work with you individually to understand your mission, your vision. We work with you individually to help you craft your messaging. So we give you the formula and we give you the materials and everything, but we also work with you, because we found that, you know, if we leave people to their own, they just I don't know, they'll just fall away or something. So it's kind of like you're trying to make bread for the first time. Sure, you could look it up on YouTube and you could try it yourself, but it's always better if your mother who's done it for 20 years is sitting there showing you how to do it. And that's literally what this program is. And so Jim and I work with you one-on-one and in a group. So there's one-on-one time and there's group time and there's video. And then the software that we created way 20 years ago is included in this program as well. And so really the whole thing is part of the Perfect Vision Dinner mentorship program. Unfortunately, you can't just like sign up for it. You have to apply, because we get a lot of interest. And so the link is on the screen. You can go to fundraisingmasterminds.net and then click the apply now button, fill out the application, and then our team will get in touch with you. And we can see if the program will work for you.
Right. And I'm sorry, you all, we have to jump off. There were some questions like, how many people do you need to execute this? And would this work for an international charity? I will say that if you guys go to the website, you can reach out to Jason. And I know he does Zoom calls with folks to share more about the program if you have more detailed questions. Thank you so much for spending an hour with us, Jason. This was amazing. If you had one piece of advice for a small or new nonprofit about raising their first 100,000, what would that piece of advice be? And we're going to leave with that.
I'd say talk to a business owner, get a $5,000 check for them, and go sign up for the Perfect Vision Dinner mentorship program. That's what I would say, because we'll take it from there, and you'll, in a year, 6 months from now, you'll have more than 100,000 in the bank. And I can only say that confidently because I'm literally training like 45 people right now, and they're all doing really well. So we haven't had one person drop off or do anything. As long as they stick with it and they keep working through it, it works really well. So,
all right, y'all heard it there. Thank you so much for joining, Jason. For you all who follow Boss on a Budget, I'm doing another live on Sunday evening. You don't want to miss that. That's a live about how to deal with your board and how to become a better leader for your board. So that's going to be amazing with another special guest. Hope you guys have an awesome day, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye, everybody.